Greetings and welcome to the newest episode of the Rice Crypto Show. Today I am joined by Jordan from Waters Above for our fifth video together. If you're unfamiliar, Waters Above combines technical analysis with gematria, numerology, and astrology. I will also include a link for the playlist that has all of his previous appearances above and down below in the video description. On today's show, we talk about the possible Black Swan that is the Israel Palestine conflict, the upcoming solar eclipses, partial lunar eclipse, the Bitcoin halving, and much, much more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's episode of the Rice Crypto Show is a returning guest coming back for his fifth appearance, and maybe he could tell me what that means in numerology or gematria. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Today, I am joined by Jordan from Waters Above, and I will have a link down below for the playlist with all of his previous appearances, as well as his social media, including his website and his YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, Jordan, welcome back to the show, my friend. How's it going?
Oh man, everything's amazing. I appreciate you having me back on. I'm glad we were able to make this happen so last minute. I know we were having some tough times organizing this, but here we are, and I'm really excited to reconnect. It's probably been at least 2 to 3 months, right?
It's been a little longer. It's March 15th or 16th we recorded, and
Whoa.
I
Okay.
took most of the summer off because of I'll explain more of that. Most of my subscribers are aware of what happened, but just dealing with so much shadow banning and my channel was negative growth. They were unsubscribing people like a minimum, like around about an average of like 10 people a day, which is significant after, about 10, 15, 20, 30 days, 40 days, 60 days. It's been horrible. And instead of trying to fight when I was weak, I decided to take a break and re-strengthen myself so I could come back at this. So I was still putting out content. I just slowed down extremely. And then in August, I re-released a bunch of older interviews to remind people of some of the interviews that I've done. And the crazy thing, Jordan, is if you listen to some of these older interviews, because some of them took place at the end of 2019, some 2020, some 2021, they're so relevant, especially from an economic standpoint to where we are today. So I appreciate you making time. I know that we have some crazy stuff happening around the world, man. When we're done talking about everything, I'll give you an opportunity to share like what you're offering over on your website at watersabove.com with your different courses that you have available, as well as your YouTube channel. But we have this Black Swan type event. I'm not sure if it's a Black Swan yet. It kind of feels a little early, but Israel and Palestine via the Hamas attack, which I think was on the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur War, if I'm not mistaken. And it seems to still be escalating. Alajira.com, they have they basically got everything updated here. You can see like 2 seconds ago, thousands of, and make sure this is like still real time. So 17 minutes ago, right group decries Israeli called to commit war crime. So this is like in real time things that are happening. 23 minutes ago, 31 minutes ago. Yeah, so this website's doing a really good job at trying to keep up to date with what's happening. How do you think this is going to affect everything?
Yeah, I agree. It's very early. Like the fact that this happened on a Saturday, it's kind of uncertain of how it'll affect the markets holistically because being Columbus Day, the bond market being closed, that is definitely it's part of the story. It's part of the conversation for those that are interested in investing in markets. And then you have the banking holiday, essentially. So we have the regular stock market open, Forex is trading, precious metals are trading, crypto's trading, and things are very, kind of just hovering between some positive, negative, more neutral energy, but nothing where it's really noticeable in the markets. But
Right.
if this was to have happened on a Monday, it would have been a total, or excuse me, if this would have happened on like the middle of the week, this would have absolutely affected markets instantaneously. The only trigger that I'm seeing right now is a buyback on gold as well as a huge pump in oil. So there's already some speculation going on as early as today, and we'll see what it'll look like tomorrow when the traditional markets open with the bond market as well. So we're kind of getting in on this early. And obviously, with this event, nobody saw this coming. And if anything, in the truther community, they were looking for more of the war vibes to include China, or perhaps more of the stuff that we were hearing with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So that's what even adds the randomness to it and the chaotic nature to this. It's out of left field.
Sort
So
of out of left field. I mean, I think we were already kind of like, I mean, this shit's been going on for so long. It was just a matter of when, but nobody knew specifically when. And this actually seems to be one of the more, if not the most serious attack that I can tell in my lifetime when it comes to this whole Palestine versus Israel debate. And I'm not here picking sides, just because we're way, way, way too early in knowing what's going on. But yes, this could have an adverse effect on the markets. And I agree, if it did happen like Tuesday, Wednesday in the week, it would have definitely affected the markets because people would have just
mhm,
reacted in fear automatically.
yeah. So the esoteric side to all of this, which many of you probably are aware because they've been talking about it inside of these news headlines, is that it's the 50th anniversary since the Yom Kippur War, going back to 1973. And this is really important because this number 50 is tied to a concept called the Jubilee, the biblical Jubilee. And I was talking about the year of 2023 being the year of Jubilee, from specifically September 2022 being Rosh Hashanah in the Hebrew calendar over to Rosh Hashanah of September 2023. And now we're effectively through that essence. And what a Jubilee is actually quite a positive thing. And that's been noticeable in the markets as well. We've seen throughout the entire 2023 year, up until the end of the Jubilee, we were going up. The stock market had an incredible rally. We made it back within all-time highs for the Nasdaq. So this is clearly playing out in the Jubilee essence. And then right when it finished up back on September 17th, we've seen kind of a lull, uncertainty. Lots of random things have happened. We even had Michael Burry, really famous investor from that movie. They made a movie
The
about
Big
it. I'm
Short,
sure most of you have seen it.
the Big Short.
Yeah, exactly. And this event, having this guy come out and talk about putting in these big shorts at that time, it just made more people feel like, okay, we're going down. There's something looming. And of course, they hit you when you least expect it. So that's essentially what this event was as of a couple days ago, and tied to the 50th anniversary of this Yom Kippur War to the day, pretty much within 24 hours of it. So just to let people know, if they're unaware, a Jubilee is after 7 cycles of 7 Shemitah years. You can go look up when the next Shemitah will be, and you can look up all of them that we've had. And this is when we typically see all of our market tops as well as all of our market crashes. And all of our historic market crashes have been in that time frame of the Shemitah year. But we don't have Jubilees too often because those come around after 7 cycles of 7, being 49 years on the 50th year. Well, that's incredible that we just had this event, because the last time Israel was at war was in 1973, 50 years to the day. And there's some code hidden in this that I revealed in my recent Red Pill podcast over on Patreon. And it's the number 86. So I don't want to get too complicated here, but essentially the day that Israel was formed, which was May 14th of, I believe it was 48. Correct me if I'm wrong. But back at that time, we had an 86 date numerology. Now, if you go to the day of this event, back the Yom Kippur War in 1973, it's on October 6th. It's the day leaving 86 days left in the year. Now, if you think about what the date October 6th is more esoterically, October should actually be the 8th month in the system. Like the prefix oct is 8, like an octagon is 8 sides. So we know our Gregorian calendar is just a big scam. So the date that this happened on was technically 8/6, October 8, 6th day, the day leaving 86 days left in the year. And the day that Israel was formed was an 86 double digit date numerology. Now, why does this matter, right? Because this is all coded in. This is all part of the code. So we take 8 times 6, that gives us 48. Israel formed in 1948. All right. And what is 48? It's the year before we would go into our 7 cycles of 7. 7 times 7 is 49. So when we look at numbers esoterically, we want to think about a key number in the middle, and then we look to the left or right of it, right? Because that's how time works. It's a ripple effect going out. So you would have your main year being the Shemitah year, but you have the year leading into that energy, and then you have the year after it. Finally, the bubble pops, and then you're leading out of it. Everything has a growth cycle, right? Just like in the wintertime, we watch the leaves fall off the trees, and then moving into the spring, we see the fruit bear, and everything is cycles. Whether you're looking at the moon, you're looking at your child grow up. Humans go through cycles. Markets do too, and so do these world events. They're working cyclically, and whether you believe they're scripted or not scripted, it doesn't matter, because when you see this code and it proves itself, I mean, then there you go. You have the proof in real life. And I think that's what a lot of people want in this decoding game. When they come up to my work or they find any decoder's work, they're like, well, where's the proof? And moments like this are really
It's in
telling
the pudding.
because,
Tell them it's in the
yep.
pudding.
Well, I talked about Jubilee now for going on over a full year, technically. And a lot of people were saying, well, it's not the Jubilee year, because rabbis were saying it was back in 2016. But the funny thing about this is rabbis are not decoders. Rabbis listen to other rabbis that they were taught by. The reason they don't know about the Jubilee is because they are being told when these cycles are going, but they're not doing the work themselves to actually figure out the connection points. So if we look at right now, back to the 70s, we see a perfect mimicking. We had the Nixon shock in 71. Then we moved into 72, 73. By 73 to 75, we had what was called it was a mini recession, essentially, 1973, 1975 recession. We see this sort of echo of having a president that's in so-called in charge right now that's clearly not a leader. He could barely speak full sentences. So it's like this fool is leading the charge. And that's the same effect that we had with what was going on with Nixon. Then he resigned, and we see how the markets behaved after. So this is a similar kind of essence that we're getting right now. And the fact that we just had this attack, this what Netanyahu literally called war, well, then that's very, very clear that they're working in cycles, and this is big. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to affect the whole world stage, but if you're living over there in that area right now and you're affected by this, like, first and foremost, sending you lots of love, and I hope everything's okay for you and your family. But if you have the ability to get out of that area, then you should, because this is
Yeah,
just getting started.
I feel like that's the case as well, because you're hearing a lot of talk on the international stage as to involvement, aid, things like that. I guess I saw something about the United States giving money to Iran, and Iran
Yep.
possibly being involved with this, which would have meant, and they've tried coming out from a United States perspective, tried coming out saying none of the money that we gave to Iran was used for this, but it's too many coincidences when it happens after they receive the money. And it feels like we live in a simulation 100%. And I want to remind people, you said today is Columbus Day. Today is the 9th of October. I'm going to be releasing this video on 10/10. So people are aware of where we are in the timeline. So it's just going to be like around 24 hours or less from the time that we're recording this. So yeah, man, it's just like, because a lot of I guess this is kind of a black swan. I'm just not sure how much of an effect it's going to have on the markets at this point. We'll just have to see, because it depends on how things escalate in Ukraine and Russia.
Mhm.
What could potentially happen with China, Taiwan, even in our own political arena here in the United States. There's a lot of uncertainty as to, like, is Biden going to run for president? Is Trump going to run, or is Trump going to get elected? All these
Mhm.
all these uncertainties, along with I just called it a perfect storm, because there's so many. It's if you look at this from a spiritual warfare attack, we're just being bombarded from every single direction, and it's hard for people to focus on one specific thing unless you're working with a group of people that are all focusing on one specific thing, and you can keep each other informed because there's so much happening. I mean,
Yeah,
Hawaii, what
absolutely.
happened there? That's another that was I would have considered that, you know, unexpected as well. Not a black swan
Yeah, what
because
happened in New York? I mean, look at that
it's all
flood.
over the world.
Yep.
So much stuff has been happening over the past few years. It feels very, very biblical in a lot of ways.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you remove the religious perspective and you just look at it from the truth of truths, and it's very much feeling like there's change coming that's so dramatic and so with such force that it's going to be difficult for the average person to be able to deal with it, whether that be financially, emotionally, spiritually, consciously. Like it is very much an all out attack. And let's talk about the reason why. It's because we're shifting out of the age. We're moving into the age of Aquarius. And it's necessary that when you move into, and it sucks to say necessary, but that's just the way this thing works. When you move into a new age, they destroy the symbols of the old age and then they purposefully infiltrate the matrix, the simulacrum, with that essence. So, what does that mean? We're in the Piscean age still. We know we're not in Aquarius just yet. The trigger point to know that we're in Aquarius will be when we're in a cashless society globally, when we're all using CBDCs globally, when we don't have any more passports, no physical passport being handed over to anyone. It'll just be digital identification codes that are either on a cell phone or some sort of wearable. I'm not entirely sure the depth of where that'll go. Of course, technology is moving at a rapid pace. So what we look at right now as a cell phone could become goggles in 2 years. We seriously have, and if anyone denies these ideas, then come on,
No, it could
look
be
at the speed at
contacts. I
which
mean,
it could
because I
literally
think
be
we already have
contacts for sure.
goggles. I think we already
Yep.
have some goggles that do something similar. So, I mean, our
Yeah.
technology is definitely going to get crazier. You mentioned the Jubilee period in the Jubilee year ending being every 50 years, 7 sevens of 49. Would
hmm
that kind of place the last Jubilee at the tail end of the Yom Kippur War?
Well,
And
that
if
war
so,
only
that would be
lasted.
really interesting. Well, but if we're talking 50 years, if it's a 50-year anniversary, that would still put us somewhere in that time frame
Yeah.
as the previous Jubilee year,
Yes.
which is
It's
interesting if
very.
we're coming back to a potential another war coming out of a Jubilee year.
Yeah. And again, I just want to remind people that when we're talking about these Jubilee years and Shemitahs and all of that, they're based in Rosh Hashanah, not the traditional Gregorian New Year. So we're
The
not talking about
Hebrew
January.
calendar.
We're talking about the Hebrew calendar precisely. So that could be confusing to some people because when they're trying to look at like what these dates are and compare it to the Gregorian year, which is what most of us are using for semantics, it could confuse. But needless to say, I mean, if we have this event that's proven that it's mimicking perfectly 50 years in one day, perfectly, and we look at some of the code that's involved in all of this, like maybe I could give you I could share my screen and I could show you a couple of
Certainly.
codes that I've picked up. Yeah, let me go ahead and see if this will allow me. All right. So can you see my screen right now?
Pulling it up as we speak. Here it is. Oh, and you made it large for us Reader Digest type people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I
Thank
just
you for
want you to
helping the
look at
old
this.
eyes.
Of course, of course. I just want you to look at this reduction column right here. And you're going to see Silicon Valley Bank equals 69. Now, on the 69th day of this year, March 10th, was the day that Silicon Valley Bank failed. Okay. You look at Yom Kippur War and you have 69. Same code actually sharing the English ordinal with Silicon Valley as well. Then you look at the leader of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, also giving you the 69 code. Now, Bitcoin's current all time high is 69,000. It happened in the same year that the Queen died at 96. We see a lot of these 6996 codes, and the reason why is because that's the symbol of Cancer. And Cancer is the capstone on the royal arc. And that royal arc is literally, it's a structural piece. It's a structural piece of the foundation. So this is where you're combining the esoterica into all of this code. And to me, the fact that we're getting this 69 matching, it tells me that this year, for the rest of this year, it's going to be a couple more rituals involving this 6-9 code. And what we could look to, what would be the 69 days left in the year. So I'm going to quickly just do that on the side and let you guys know. That would be October 23rd. Keep that in mind, family. October 23rd is coming up this month. All right. Also, another keynote about the number 6-9 is it goes back to the last Shemitah year. So if you were to go to Rosh Hashanah of 2022, you're going to see that the Shemitah ended on the day leaving 96 days in the year, which was right around the time frame the queen died at 96. By the way, she died 69 days after the banking holiday for her platinum jubilee. Like, you can't make this up. You just can't. It's a very important
That's what
number
I'm
this
saying.
year.
I mean, that's where I've come to terms of like thinking that we really do live in a simulation. It's just so much. You can combine a lot of things and you can look at a lot of things, but it's so cyclical and there's so many things happening. It just makes me really feel like more and more and more that we really do live like in an actual matrix.
Well, I mean, we know that there's code here. We know that at the quantum level, if you even wanted to go science talk for the sciencey people out there, at the quantum level, we know nothing is physical. Everything is just vibrations. Everything is just vibrating energy. And we would have a measurement system for that, for those vibrations, because we're humans and we like to put numbers and words onto everything we do. It's part of our disease, actually. I know that's tough for people, but even as a high level decoder who does it on a professional level, like, this stuff gets the best of a lot of people. You know, I don't do this stuff for fun. I do it because it's my purpose. Like, I'm able to actually do it without getting emotional about it. And it's tough sometimes because I get it all the time. Like, just a couple of days ago, I got flooded with emails and messages of people that were like, "You called it. You predicted that we were going to have an air ritual, and it happened, and the bombs fell." And I'm responding to them being like, "Human beings just died.
Yeah.
Like humans just
Like
died.
people act
Like, do
like
you
it's a
think I
video
get
game.
happy? Yeah. Like,
Like
do
it's
you
a
think I
video
get
game. Like
happy?
a bunch of NPCs just got killed off. Don't worry about those guys.
Yeah, like, and it shows that, I mean, I know those people meant well, and shout out to anyone who supports my art and appreciates and resonates with what I do. I'm not trying to, like, go there. I want you to know where I'm really at with this whole thing. Like, it's tough knowing this sometimes. It's tough having this insight and having this ability to forecast, because it's, even the prosperous shit comes at a cost, right? In order for you to be prosperous, a lot of people need to lose. And technically, why do you think people do well in a bull run? Because a lot of people do stupid shit. The
Hmm.
99% buys the top and the smart money sells the top. It's the same thing in the other direction. If we want to talk markets, you're basically handing off this overvalued piece of belief to somebody who still believes that it'll go up. And you're the only one who wins if you were the one that made that decision. But the majority, the masses, act the complete opposite way. So, anywho, we're at a
Well,
very,
there's always a loser on every side of the trade. Not everybody thinks about that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
that's how a trade works. But you can't always assume that that person's a loser because you don't know their position when they bought in, what they're selling at, those kind of things. But yeah, I
sure.
get what you're saying. But people don't take that in perspective that when they're trading, that there's somebody on the other side losing if they're winning.
Yeah. Life is interesting in that regard. It's a dance, and sometimes somebody's going to step on your foot and you need to know how to, avoid that next time.
That's a
But
good way of putting it.
we're at this time right now where we're in a shift between the end of Jubilee. We have made it past Yom Kippur. We have this Yom Kippur War anniversary currently live. Event only happened a couple days ago. And pretty much between now and the next Chinese New Year, which is, I think, a more important part to this than the traditional Gregorian calendar that everyone's using, there's going to be a lot of shit that goes down. So the only reason I say that is because we're in the year of the rabbit, and the rabbit is coded into this number 52 and 25. And guess what? 25 years after Israel formed, we had the Yom Kippur War, which lasted 2 weeks and 5 days. And then here we are. We're in the year of the rabbit, which is coded to the number 52 and 25, and we're mimicking that perfectly. So in the rest of this year of the rabbit, leading into what I believe will be February of 2024, we're going to have a couple more events that are coded into that 2552 energy. And that's directly tied to crypto because cryptocurrency equals 52 in gematria, crypto equals 25. And we also have 52 weeks in a year. So our year has literally been coded by time to the number 52, right? We know that. So I think that this is really an interesting moment, you know. I think there's so much to say. It's like endless conversations could develop from just a couple of things that have happened in the past weeks, right? Like,
Well, do you when you say a lot of this could affect crypto because of the numbers and the numerology aspect of it, or I don't know if that's the gematria aspect, is that positive or negative for crypto? Because from my understanding, the last time we talked, where we entered into a solar phase that's supposed to be going through 2025. I'm not sure of a date or a time frame, but that would put us in what would be considered more of a bull cycle when it comes to the astrological side of it, if I understood our previous conversation correctly.
yep. So we're now there's been so much between our last conversation and now. You know, the
I
one
know, that's
thing
why I
to
wanted. That's why we
yeah,
can't go this long without talking again.
yeah, for sure.
'Cause
Well,
it
so
just makes for the more that we talk, the more frequently we talk, the better it helps me to stay on point. I try to watch your videos as much as possible, but the more that we can talk actually helps me, even if we do it on a private level, which I just should be reaching out to you more anyways, just aside from just coming on my show.
yeah, man. Well, I mean, I'm really grateful to be connecting and to be allowed the platform. And it's beautiful to have people that are open minded towards this stuff because 99% of people are like, "What the fuck?" Like they have zero care, or they think it's a lie or a scam. Or and I'm like, well, how many more events do we need to show you tied into everything else to prove? I mean, so I'm past that point now, and it's great to connect with people like you. But needless to say, to tell people of where we're at in the timeline for those who are interested in cryptocurrency, Bitcoin moves off of lunar and solar cycles. We had a solar cycle start on April 20th of this year. It was when we had our solar eclipse. We have another solar eclipse happening in less than a week. Okay. So this is great that we connected right now. And what we see happening on Bitcoin in every solar cycle leading into the second solar eclipse of a solar cycle, which again, we're less than a week away. After that moment, Bitcoin pretty much moves up for the rest of time. There was one iteration of it that failed, and it was the C19 crash. But what we know about that crash was we never went lower in price than where Bitcoin planted its lows before we went into the solar cycle. So, what that tells me is because of the way Bitcoin's been behaving for so long now, holding these levels above 20K, even during the Black Swan of Silicon Valley Bank failure, which people might not want to call that a Black Swan, but look at the amount of money that was involved in that. Between that and Silvergate, that was a huge amount of money comparatively to Lehman and some of the things that happened back in.
Yeah, but I still don't think that we're done with that. I mean, we talked before
We're
about more
not.
bank crashes coming, and I've compared it to when you're driving down the road in a car and a rock hits your window, your windshield. It initially will chip your windshield. You might have a little crack. If you don't do anything to fix it, let's say you don't have the funds or you're busy and you don't go to a repair shop and replace that windshield, what's going to end up happening over just a short amount of time with weather changes and different things happening is that crack will start to spider web out, and
It's a great way to put it.
eventually that windshield just gets so weak it's not able to even withstand anything, including wind, and it breaks. So I kind of feel like we're there. Raising the interest rates is going to continue to make things worse. um, I think that they're trying to make the holidays look as nice as possible. So I think after the holidays is when
I
the
agree.
shit's really going to hit the fans. It's
I
like, let
agree.
everybody have a good Christmas, a good Thanksgiving and Christmas. Let everybody have that. Well, Thanksgiving is just a US thing, but let everybody have a good Christmas.
Well, it's not
And then
just a
we're
US thing because the
and then
whole
we'll just
world has
bring reality
adapted
back.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday, right? So you got to think about that. When you think about consumerism, Thanksgiving and this whole idea of Black Friday has been pretty much adopted by the whole world now.
True. You're right. You're right. Especially
And I
from a
think that's
commerce
what really
standpoint.
matters. That's what really matters. When you think about the amount of shit people are buying all around the world on Black
It's
Friday
yeah,
and Cyber Monday,
it
it's way more than the amount of plane tickets and food being bought on
oh, I
Thanksgiving
know.
in the US.
Some
Yeah.
companies make more money in that Q because that would be considered Q4 still. So that
Mhm.
would more companies make more in Q4 than the rest of the year because of the holidays, depending on if you're producing products. So, and
Yep.
I assure everybody we will pull up some charts. We just had to get some conversation out of the way to
Yeah.
lead up to what we're going to be talking about with the charts.
Yeah, well, I
So we
agree
have
with
this.
you just said before, about this end of the year kind of like relief. Like, I think the next FOMC meeting will be very telling.
Hey, we're 420 away from right now, exactly from the next eclipse. It's 4 days,
Light it
20
up.
hours, 24 minutes. So it's going to be
Yeah.
the next one is going to be on the 14th of October. It's an
Mhm.
annular solar eclipse, not total. It's viewable from the United States and parts of Mexico, Central America, um, Brazil, Colombia, and they're going to be broadcasting live from Roswell, New Mexico. This is the Ring of Fire eclipse, I believe they call it. And man, I have to send you a video to check out the end of about this theory about someone is saying that it's not the moon that's doing these eclipses from a biblical standpoint. It doesn't match
Mhm.
up, and
Mhm.
it's a completely separate thing that could be something comparable to a Death Star that could be considered Mount Olympus, double-sided dome.
What?
Yeah, dude, I'll send you this theory. It's pretty interesting, but taking that out of the equation, we also have a lunar eclipse coming up, a partial lunar eclipse coming up on
Mhm.
October 28th. That's going to be visible from much of the Eastern Hemisphere, including Europe, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, and Oceania.
Mhm.
And so, what are your thoughts on how these? And we'll get into the April eclipse is coming up April 8th, which is a total
Mhm.
solar eclipse. But what are your thoughts on these two eclipses that we're going to be experiencing? Because generally speaking, you talk about negative energy from full moons and positive energy from new moons. What kind of energy do we get from eclipses? And what kind of energy do we get from an annular solar eclipse in a solar phase as
Great
well?
question. Great question. So,
Especially
typically,
considering
what we
all this shit that we've been talking about, like with
Yeah,
Israel,
yeah,
all this
yeah.
uncertainty. It's like this, that's where I'm saying a perfect storm.
Yep. So typically the way it works is every month we have a new moon and a full moon, right? And what we have is when we're going into a full moon, meaning we're leaving a new moon, we go down. We're typically bearish, leaving a new moon, going into a full moon. Then, as we leave a full moon and go into a new moon, we tend to be bullish. And this is something specifically to Bitcoin. We do see it in the indices in the major markets, but it's better to just focus on the kind of what we're mostly interested in. I'm sure some people are focused on maybe precious metals, and there are indicators that you can look for specifically for things like gold and silver. But to wrap up this idea and have it be something where you guys could pull up a chart at home and see exactly what I'm saying, we tend to have this energy moving up into new moons and then moving down out of new moons into full moons. Well, with eclipses, it depends on the cycle we're in. When we're in a solar or lunar phase, what we see is that when we're in a lunar phase, we have really strong lunar eclipses. And a good way to look at this would be pulling up the Bitcoin chart and zooming out all the way to, and I could show my chart if you'd like me to. Okay. Just let me know if you can see the chart. Beautiful. All right, I'm going to turn off all this noise for everyone and make it look nice and easy. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin cycle that happened between 2021. We went parabolically into that year, and then we had this deeper correction. And then we can see right here at this moment, actually, we had a lunar eclipse that started the lunar cycle. And since then, we went on a downtrend. We did go up for this fake out bull trap, but ultimately, if you look at almost any altcoin chart, a lot of them finished their cycle over here. And when we
So
flipped into this,
that's your double top you're talking about, right?
Yeah. So we
Okay.
were in a lunar phase effectively starting here. And if you look at any lunar eclipse after this moment right here, you will see big corrections. And we had two classic ones that happened. One of them was over here, where we watched the collapse of Terra Luna on a lunar eclipse during a lunar phase. And then we had this moment in November, which was a lunar eclipse, which was the collapse of FTX and Sam Bankman Fried and everything going on with that, which brought a lot of uncertainty to just crypto investors in general, right? Because there was people like Kevin O'Leary and just like huge names, even big influencers that were like, that was pretty much the only exchange they promoted. So, needless to say, when we moved into this moment right here on April 20th of 2023, we left the lunar phase and we entered a solar cycle, a solar phase. So now what we see is the lunar eclipses are not as strong anymore. They're weaker. And we still get pullbacks, of course, because the market can't just go up and up and up. And crypto and Bitcoin are still very volatile. So we see big price swings, very dramatic. But thus far, if you look at where we're at right now and how we've been holding these levels, we're doing pretty much what we did in the last two cycles. So this is an opportunity for me to show you what I'm talking about here, and this way your audience could have clear visuals of what's up. So we're
Much
moving
appreciated.
right here. Yeah, you can see over here I have it marked. It says solar cycle. Here it says second solar eclipse. I'm going to go to the beginning of the Bitcoin chart all the way back to this cycle here of 2011 and 2013. Remember those days?
Yeah,
So
well, I don't remember. I saw them, but yeah, I wish I remember those days.
yeah, so
Be in a
right
lot
here
better
you have
position financially.
for sure. Well, that's why we got to pay attention to this because when I'm spilling the beans right here, this really helps us out to get positioned. So we see that we entered a solar cycle right here around May 2012. We went up into the second solar eclipse, and what we see is we were flat. We were pretty much flat, but we went up immediately after that second eclipse. Now let me do that with the new cycle. So we have start of the solar cycle, and what do you know it? We move up into the second solar eclipse, and when we look at the chart from the day of the second solar eclipse, we just moved up. Now let's go to the next cycle. This was the classic cycle that probably most of you are aware of because it's kind of closer to us and when Bitcoin and crypto became much more of a household name. Well, we have this idea of moving into a solar cycle. This is nothing weird, but we have an anomaly here. What is not the anomaly is we did move up after the solar cycle, but we did have this big crash. Although it was a V-shaped recovery and we were kept it moving after that, but
That's
we
May
have this
2019.
this is a solar eclipse that happened right there at
No,
the
I know.
end of the
Where is the candles going down in that phase? What time period is that? After the second
it
solar eclipse.
so we moved, I think it was about 1 week after.
That big red candle. What date? What that's March of what, 2020?
Oh yeah, March 12th.
So
Historic day in the
that
market.
was unexpected because that was the coronavirus, the COVID-19 crash. That's
Yeah.
when pretty much the stock market had to be paused because it was going to crash just like they did in 20 or 2008. I said 2008.
Yeah, so and I could show you guys what I was talking about earlier visually when I was saying that when we are in a lunar cycle moving into a solar cycle. So look at right here from the bottom. This moment, this peak was the exact peak of the solar cycle. Right here, this was the peak of the solar cycle. So we moved up exactly the same. Look at how we bottomed also. Exactly the same amount of time too. We have the same amount of time from swing high to swing low. 1 year from here to the bottom, 1 year. We moved up perfectly into the solar eclipse. We moved up perfectly into the solar eclipse. And what we're doing right now pretty much is mimicking all the past cycles where we bottomed out before moving into this new solar cycle. And what I want to just talk about for 1 second is when we had this Black Swan, we never went lower than these lows. So I am pretty confident that it would take a fucking horrible thing to happen, isolated specifically to Bitcoin, for us to break these lows of 15K. That's my opinion. I've done all the TA. I'm doing it from a very esoteric position, and I could go into the technicals of why I don't believe we'll be going lower than 15K. But there it
But do you
is.
think do you think we'll come down to the 16K area is what you're saying though?
No, again, it would require something like this moment, and I don't know what that thing could possibly be. A fucking alien invasion? Like, what could it be?
Right. I mean, yeah,
If
no, I get
Silicon
it.
Valley Bank collapse couldn't do it, and we sprung up within what, 24 hours of that. It was like better that it happened actually. It promoted more growth. And here's my narrative on Bitcoin and crypto. All the banking failures that are to come are positive for crypto.
Should be.
They will be. Look at what happened with the
I mean,
Russia-Ukraine conflict. If they pass
yeah,
a
no, you're right.
Bitcoin ETF, if they pass a Bitcoin ETF, if they continue all this stuff that they're doing, this madness in the Middle East, it's actually just going to be pro Bitcoin. It's going to be pro crypto. Now, I don't know if I could speak for every crypto. There's about 99% of them are shit coins, but there are some that are going to be used in the new system when they roll out CBDCs and everything else they're planning to do. But with Bitcoin's market cap still maintaining above Visa, I mean, what could it would really require an isolated attack on Bitcoin. And that's not good for everything else then. So if Bitcoin gets an isolated attack, then you're going to watch all the other altcoins, including Ethereum, XRP, everything else. It's going to take a shit. So I like looking at the gold chart when they had the ETF pass because I think it's going to be a similar essence. I think when the gold ETF went live, it's going to do the similar thing for Bitcoin. It'll mature it and it'll bring more mature investors,
I think so too,
preventing
and that's
some sort of C19 crash.
I think so too, and I think that with that being said, I think that this next bull run that we're going to experience probably sometime towards mid to end of 2024 at the kickoff of maybe the last big bull run as far as price exposure, seeing the Bitcoin going up so parabolic. I mean, there may be. I mean, we've got the halving coming up in mid-April, mid to late April. I think right now it's set for the 25th of April. That's always depending on how the blocks, the time of the blocks being solved, and that's why it's kind of a guesstimation. And real quick, when you were talking about eclipses, what we have coming up on the 14th is an annular eclipse. And what we have coming up on April 8th, 2024 is a total solar eclipse. So is there a difference in
No,
the
they're the same.
energy? Okay.
Yeah.
They act, it doesn't matter the type. It's just an eclipse. It's an eclipse.
Yeah, you're going to see things like partial eclipse or penumbral eclipse and that kind of talk. But when it's total or annual, it's just the typical solar eclipse. And when it comes to totality and being able to see it in the sky with those glasses and all that stuff, you'd have to be in specific areas. But when it has to deal with the market, it will affect the market as we talked about earlier.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's we're at an interesting point in the markets. I mean, it's a lot of signs pointing towards recession, possibly depression, and that could have an effect on everything. There's a lot of talk about stagflation throughout the next year and commodities having a bull run of sorts, and Bitcoin being in that category as a digital commodity. So, I mean, right now, Bitcoin is not acting the way that it's been acting in the past few years in comparison to the DXY, because when the DXY is going up, generally Bitcoin is going down. But right now, that's not happening.
Yep.
So, and then we're on the cusp of a spot ETF being passed, which means all these institutions that are applying for the ETFs are accumulating Bitcoin. Everybody's talking about BlackRock, but Vanguard has actually accumulated more Bitcoin and miners and mining stocks and Bitcoin than Blackguard as of now. And you put that together with the halving, the fact that we're in a solar phase when it comes to the astrological side of things, it all signs point to higher, up and to the right. But then we have all these uncertainties at play because Bitcoin has never really been in the type of environment of, what's the word I'm looking for, where the Federal Reserve is tightening. Most of the time Bitcoin has been in existence has been during like quantitative easing, and that's obviously been good for Bitcoin. So there's all these different things that are kind of all happening at the same time
Yeah.
from just a economic standpoint that makes me uncertain. Like there's some people calling for Bitcoin to go sub 15.5, which I don't see. There's some people calling for it to go sub 20, which I see as a possibility, but it would have to be something that occurs, and maybe something like Israel could be it. I don't know.
Yeah.
this
Well,
conflict.
my take on this whole thing is that the one thing that's different about today is we just went through 2 cycles of Bitcoin being quote unquote too expensive. This is the common narrative I heard as an educator in the space at a high level, by the way. You know how many portfolio reviews I've done where I've had people tell me the reason they don't own any Bitcoin is because it's too expensive. Bro, retail doesn't even hold this shit. Retail has
That's
0
crazy.
interest. I know, but just listen to my point here. The idea is that retail doesn't wanna touch this stuff because they either have this limiting belief that it's too expensive, they don't get the whatever, they think it's a scam. They're in some other isolated altcoin community that their whole way of thriving and staying alive is by talking shit about Bitcoin, whatever it is. It's very unsophisticated way of looking at economics in general, about looking at investment thesis in general. But the point is that we're moving into a new run where it's been 2 cycles back to back where people that are on the retail level don't touch this stuff. So it's moving and shifting and just being accumulated by the smart money. And it's all smart money now. That's all it is. And I think that's why when we had these moments like Russia Ukraine conflict, we saw it positive for Bitcoin, and why we've seen these sorts of reactions with so-called negative things happening in the basic retail level banks. We're seeing the Vanguards and BlackRocks of the world accumulating. They're not keeping it a secret anymore. You know, it is what it is. They're not
Well,
going
I
to be
think
accumulating Shiba Inu.
Well,
Like,
I don't believe so, no. But the ETF, I think once the ETFs are passed, a lot more people who are skeptical about Bitcoin will get involved because of the TradFi protection that an ETF offers versus
yeah,
physically owning the Bitcoin. And
but
if
it'll
we're
be
tokenizing
the
stocks,
same
it's going
money
to
that's
be.
been buying it though.
Oh, I know. And that's where I think that's where I think a little bit different things will happen with ultimately with the gold and silver ETFs versus a Bitcoin ETF is if we tokenize these things, which BlackRock is even talking about, then you can have a tokenized Bitcoin spot ETF and know that the entirety of the ETF is backed one for one by the physical Bitcoin. Because that's the question that a lot of people have when it comes to the gold and silver precious metals markets with the spot ETFs like the CME is do these entities actually have all the physical silver and gold that's being traded, or is it rehypothecated? And then another scary thing about the ETF, and I've had a conversation with a couple people and I'm planning on doing more, is the financialization of Bitcoin and being able to do more lending, collateralized lending and things like that, and the credit expansion that the Bitcoin spot ETFs specifically will bring to the banking system. And if they pass it soon enough, and I think this is why Congress is pushing Gary Gensler to pass it, it will actually help some of these banks that are underwater because of the treasury bonds, which was supposed to be a safe way for these banks to invest their funds and kind of get out of water with these Bitcoin ETFs, and Bitcoin, in a sense, come and save the banks, which would be the most ironic thing of all. But I think that's kind of the game plan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, you brought up some great thoughts, and thank you for rounding out this whole, idea with everything. I mean, it really is helpful. And I'm speculating myself. I have my own theories. I look at everything from a much more, spiritual and conscious perspective. So I spend most of my time away from news and away from the narratives, and I try to isolate it out so that all I'm really doing is decoding. But luckily, I have a whole community of people that are specialized in all these other things, and I get to connect with great people like you that are tapping into this at a level that I wouldn't normally be looking at. So yeah, it just rounds out a lot of the ideas and a lot of my own thesis. Um, and you bring up great points. I think right now we're like in the wild wild west when we talk about crypto. Like it's
Yeah, no, we
really,
are.
I mean, I talk to accountants and even attorneys that don't know their head from their ass about this stuff, and they're supposed to be the ones making sure that people are paying their capital gains on it. So we're in like really weird territory with this whole thing. And what do people who don't want to learn about stuff typically do? They get frustrated. By the way, I'm talking about the leadership of our world, sadly. they do what they do best. They get frustrated and they just strike the hammer on it. And that's where the regulation and that's where all that kind of stuff comes into play. So I'm assuming the big smart money out there is trying to rush in these things like these instruments. You know what I mean? The ETF is huge. So that when the regulation hammer gets struck, it doesn't fuck over the thing that they've been slowly accumulating in the background for a long time now. And they've admitted it. Everybody from Jamie Dimon over at Chase to a lot of others, they talk so much shit about these digital assets, but they're accumulating.
Oh, they are, and that's the reason why they're talking shit. It's just so they can help keep the price down because these entities want to buy when there's blood on the street. That's kind of why I feel like there's going to be at least one more leg down, possibly below the sub 20, and I don't know how long it'll last. Just for that one more, scoop up at low prices as possible. And they have the power between all of these financial institutions to do that, knowing that it will go back up in the long run and it'll be profitable in the long run. Because I mean,
Absolutely.
it's part of the game, part of their game book or their game plan with their book, man. It's how they roll it. Now, when it comes to the short term, we have the annular solar eclipse on 10/14. We have the partial lunar eclipse on 10/28. In between that, you mentioned 10/23. What are you anticipating, just based off of your decoding and your
Mhm.
research, just up and up through the end of the month, going into
Yep.
All Hallows Eve, Halloween?
Yeah, Sam Hain.
It,
Salwin.
yeah,
Yeah, Salwin is going to be interesting this year because we've had, lots of negativity, lots of just people being divided, and these sorts of holidays bring people together. They're kind of the time for people to organize and take their mind off of the world, if you know what I mean. Obviously, that's a United States thing, but the whole world, again, through Hollywood and programming, have kind of fell into these similar traps. It's also a big ritual holiday, in not only Gaelic but in paganism. So they like to ritualize this time frame. And you're asking me specifically on the 23rd. Well, there's a couple things to bring up. One, we talked about the lunar eclipse, which is going to be the upcoming full moon. That lunar eclipse is going to be on the 28th, but we tend to see on charts, especially for Bitcoin, a pivot on any first quarter or third quarter moons. So, in plain English, we have the first quarter moon coming up on the 21st. I pointed out the 23rd date just as one of the dates to keep in mind. But right after that lunar eclipse, just a couple days after, we have the FOMC meeting. And that's going to be big, right? Like this FOMC meeting is going to be probably one of the more important ones because we're in Q4, we're shifting into that time frame where, like you said, they're going to want to bring relief and they're going to want to bring optimism to people, even though we just got hit with this war thing. I mean, I guess it's just enough time to kind of like sizzle out from the first world, kind of Europe, America vibes, which are the biggest. They're really big consumers in all of this time frame. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking at it like we could see the market overall slide into November, early November, but I think for Bitcoin, we should be back into yearly highs by the potentially by the middle of November. And into December, we should be ending off the year looking pretty good. So what that means, simplified, is that Bitcoin should be back into 30 to 32,000 before the end of 2023. Even if we get a dip now, even if we got a dip, it should
right.
still be in that essence by the transition into 2024.
And I've been hearing a lot of people calling for like 32, 35 towards the end of year.
Makes
I've
tons of
heard some
sense.
other, I've heard some other ridiculous predictions as well. I mean, some people are calling for 700, 800,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2025. And I'm not saying it's not possible, but
Yeah.
that's a lot.
Let's get to
That's
100K first. Right?
right. And you're right. The next meeting that they're having is starting on Halloween. Very,
Yep.
very oddly enough. And then the date that they'll give all the that they'll do the interest rates, say what they're going to be doing, is going to be October 1st. And then the next meeting is December 12th and 13th. A lot of people were speculating that I know that weren't looking at the calendar was thinking that this next one was the last one of the year. There's two more. I think they're definitely going to raise the interest rates this time around. And depending on the data, probably again in December.
So
But
what's
we'll
your take
see.
on that? What's your take on if they were to increase the interest rates? How are you looking? How are you projecting the market to go into the end of Q4?
It's going to cause more stress on banks. And we could see some bank failures between now and the end of the year, because we're talking about middle of December. A lot of the banks will be closed not too long after that. So maybe beginning of the year is when we'll start getting news about more bank failures, which will kind of lead into what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And what is
again,
one of the banks you think will be part of that ritual?
I have a feeling that there's going to be a big bank, but I don't know which big bank. I don't know if it's Bank of America. I kind of feel like it's
Mm.
symbolic because it's called the Bank of America.
Yeah. The
It
reason why
just
I don't think it's Bank of America is because look at where all the money's going, like with Warren Buffett's investments in them, as well as their crypto
well,
infrastructure they built in
Citibank's
the
been getting a
background for
lot of
CBDCs.
investment. I see Citibank staying. I see JP Morgan staying. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I'm not really sure who's in that. I don't know the sheets of people, man. It's just I think
You want
all
to know
these
my
guys are
opinion?
all scammers. Yeah, I'd love to hear your opinion.
I think it's going to be credit unions because everyone thinks they're safe. That's like the way that I play this game. Like
Well, I
everyone
will say
thinks that the credit.
Here in Winston-Salem, though, and I've been kind of a champion of credit unions, and I was thinking about opening up an account in a credit union, and now you're making me question it. But they're transparent, so I want to find out what, because so as I've seen in my area, BB&T was a very big bank. BB&T and Wachovia were the two big banks, and we had a buildings downtown for both. Well, since 2020 and all the downsizing, both of those banks have moved out of those buildings and in smaller facilities and reduced the number of branches. Now, BB&T was bought by Truist, um, and now we've got like a credit union that is up on a big building, which is ironic now that the bigger banks are kind of downsizing, the credit union is kind of upsizing, and
Mhm.
they're not protected by the FDIC. They've got a different form of insurance, but I don't think it's
Mhm.
federal. So that's why I think a lot of people were saying they were safe. And I was telling people, I was encouraging people to unbank themselves. You know, if you couldn't completely get out of a bank, go to a credit union. Or if you have to use a bank, only keep in what you need to cover your bills. Don't feed the beast.
Yeah.
It's going to be easier to deposit money than to withdraw. And I think that's going to become more apparent more
Or just get
towards the
more
beginning of
savvy
the
with
year.
putting your money in a business bank account. Like the first places they're going to chop away is 401ks. We know that they did it. They're going to, whatever they need to do to prevent bank runs. Well, who's most likely to do the bank run? It's retail, it's normal people. So put your money. I shouldn't get into this. Not financial advice, but for me, my moves, the way that I've been maneuvering is obviously anyone who's listening to this should have a business. Like you should be SP or LLC if you could promote that to or elect it to S corp or C corp depending on what's best for you. You should consider this sort of stuff. Get business bank accounts, because that's way less likely to get mowed over if there was some issues. I mean, of course, it's not safeguarded 100%, but the bank runs thing is the big one, right? That's the big, big, big problem. And yeah, look at the differences between what would happen at a retail level, which is personal checking accounts versus a business. Um, Savings accounts are really interesting too. Like a lot of people have been just like psychologically brainwashed into thinking they need to keep their money in the bank, earning these small little amounts in
Right.
savings. And get the
Less than
LLC,
1%.
get the business bank account, learn about IRAs, like just get savvy and all this stuff, man. That's actually a big piece of my new project that I'm launching in 2024. I want to start teaching this stuff, because it's not just about making money, it's about learning how to keep it. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many people,
that's so well said.
their eyes are on the prize with these bull runs, and it makes it so that bear markets are tough if you didn't know how to react or respond to these bull runs. And these bull runs are quick, and then we have what 80% of the time after that is just watching the market go down. So
Or
needless to
sideways.
say, I think, yeah, yeah. Well, unless your timeline is infinite, which it should be, and how do you make your timeline infinite? You create a business. That's when you don't need to worry about the market anymore. You could use the market as a tertiary piece of your total wealth plan. And
You need to do a course on this,
yeah, well,
telling people
that's
about
kind of
creating businesses and why, and going a little bit more in detail on the private side.
yep. Absolutely. So the new project I'm coming out with in 2024, it's going to be to do that for not only a more entry level kind of somebody who wants to lock in on a 90-day program without a huge commitment, and then there's going to be a upgraded version of that, which is actually going to be a mentorship where people are going to be able to work in a smaller group coaching setting directly with me so that we could tailor business to you, to your passion, to your purpose, to the things you're interested in based on your cash flow, your lifestyle, your goals, target, etc. Also, we could kind of take it a little bit more the personal direction. But what we're going to get into in just the regular 90-day program is going to be more than enough that people could be able to take an idea they have, something they're interested in doing, and then take it to that next level. Not only about creating business or taking business that may not be working so well for you, like a failed business potentially failing, or something that's not making you feel fulfilled, because that's the huge thing, right? A lot of people, they're just like, even if they are operating a business, they're not in love with it. So it's a chore to them. So all of that stuff has been on my mind a lot in this year because of dealing with this bear market. And I just want to see more people walking in their purpose. And I know that I have the little, the tips and tricks to remove those limiting beliefs, but also get people motivated and inspired to not worry about what the world's doing. Whether the world is collapsing or on fire or whatever the fuck you hear on the news, like the only world that really matters is yours. And it's really important to remember because the wealthiest people on earth, like, they're just focused on staying in their lane. They're not getting lost in the sauce on Twitter all day complaining about what Elon posted, or the opinions of Twitch streamers. And they're creating, they're producing, and whenever they earn, they take that money they earned and they make that money work for them, and rinse repeat over and over again forever. And
Don't
then they
get
teach their
lost in the
children that.
sauce. Do not get lost in the sauce, people. Words
Become
of
the
wisdom.
sauce.
Become the sauce. A few quick questions before we wrap things up, man. April of 2024 is seeming like it's going to be an interesting time period. We have the total solar eclipse on April 8th. We have the Bitcoin halving from the bitcoinblockhalf.com saying April 25th, 2024 will be the halving. And then you've also, the last time we talked, you mentioned something about April 15th and Mondays. And when April
Yeah.
15th takes place on a Monday, it's generally not a good thing from what I understood. So we have the total solar eclipse. We have Monday, so let me go on timeline. April 8th, total solar eclipse. Monday, April 15th, question mark. 425, which will obviously probably be a different day, the Bitcoin halving. Your thoughts on that time period?
Yeah. So to give people a little bit of information about this April 15th date and why it's so perfectly, in alignment with everything else, is because of what you just brought up with the Bitcoin halving being slightly after it. And then also right before it, we have that solar eclipse. And what we see in the data with Bitcoin is as we move closer to the third eclipse in the solar cycle, we are moving into prior all time highs. So it's really interesting. Again, we
Is that
only
the
have
third
one.
eclipse?
That will be
April
April
8th
8th,
is the third
2024.
eclipse. Okay.
Correct. So what we see is there's one, again, just like the last example, there's the Black Swan in 2019 into 2020, or sorry, 2020 March specifically. By the third eclipse in the cycle, it was right after the halving, right after the last Bitcoin halving. And Bitcoin Yep, it just continue to do what it does, moves up. So I think that if there's gonna be any call out ahead of time of what would be the best last minute buying opportunity, it would be the Bitcoin halving on April of 2024. And that goes for altcoins as well. It's actually better to speculate on altcoins as we get closer to the Bitcoin halving rather than too early, because altcoins can just continue to slide more and more and more. There's no bottom on any of these things. They could
Right.
essentially go to zero in some cases. So the
And we're seeing Bitcoin
esoteric,
dominance go up as well as we're right over 50%
right.
Bitcoin
And I have
dominance in the market.
my own analysis tells me that we will potentially see a 54 to even 56% Bitcoin dominance in the next maybe 3 months. So that will steal a lot of juice from the alts. It'll make alts a buying opportunity. That's when I'm going to be, really focused on my accumulations. But anywho, April 15th is a fascinating date because it aligns with it might just be a coincidence, but we see that every April 15th that lands on a Monday specifically, we've had big events happen on the world stage. We go back a while ago, we had the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. We have in a more recent, not super recent, but we had the sinking of the Titanic, which led to the creation of the Federal Reserve System. Then we had the um, really recently, we had the Boston Marathon bombing, April 15th on a Monday, the Notre Dame fire, April 15th on a Monday. We also had C-19. The day with the most cases was April 15th, and it landed on a Monday. We see this theme. Every year that April 15th does not land on a Monday, we do not have a ritual that is heard by everyone around the world. So this April 15th that's coming up in 2024 is in fact landing on a Monday. That's really powerful. This tells me that with a high level of certainty, we will have a ritual that would be heard by the world. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to crash the market. Like
Well, yeah, it may not have
Notre
an effect on
Notre Dame.
finances at all.
Exactly. It may not have an effect on it at all, but what it will do is distract people. And that's when you got to pay attention. When everyone's distracted by an event, you want to get in. That's you invest when it's boring or you invest when there's blood in the streets. So if for whatever reason we do have an event that hits the whole world stage, such as um if we go back to the C-19 timeframe, anything regarding the virus or things that were happening with the V, that was all putting pressure on the market. But when we zoom out and we act patiently, we saw the market recover beautifully off of that crash and we went into new all-time highs. So even if we were to have something like that happen in April 2024, I believe that it will be just a short blip in the radar and then we will continue to move up. And this is also important for those who are interested in XRP because XRP does something that's very weird where it leads the market almost in regards to the alts. So I think that XRP will have an isolated move in the month of April 2024 that could potentially just go up in a straight line. Absolute parabola, it'll blow everyone away. There's going to be news tied to it, whatever, but that doesn't matter. You want to get in position way before that stuff happens. Again, not financial advice, but to me, this is really the time frame of all time frames for a coin like XRP to finally go into price discovery. It's been holding this horizontal trading range now since fucking 2017, pretty much, and it had a very lackluster bull run. It wasn't isolated to be the only coin that had a lackluster bull run. We saw it happen with Stellar Lumens, Monero, Dash, Litecoin, Digibyte. These are coins that were in past cycles that just could not make it into new all-time highs. I believe that some of those could have an opportunity in 2024. And those are the coins that have the most people are the most aware of. So again, it kind of aligns with my thesis of if there's going to be regulation, it's going to get rid of all the nonsense, all the shit coins, and things that are more branched off of Bitcoin in the early days, such as a Litecoin or even Dogecoin, which sounds silly to say, but you get the way we're moving in this world, especially with the influence of a person like Elon behind
Yeah,
this.
he's definitely going to use Doge in the everything app, whether it's you want to call it Twitter or X, whatever the fuck you want to
Mhm.
call it. But yeah, it's definitely going to have a place. Um, Something else that I wanted to ask you before we kind of get into what you're doing with your courses is, and I don't know why it hit me like this. I guess I've been looking into just different stuff with planets and religions and how they associate, especially from a Greek. God standpoint, Roman gods, even Egyptian gods, you take the gematria of Satoshi and put it in the category of Saturn, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Does Saturn not represent Satan?
No.
Does Jupiter represent Satan?
Yes.
Okay, what Saturn has the black cube. A lot of people reference Satan and Saturn together. What is the Saturn worship all about if it's not, in essence, directed towards Satan, Lucifer, the devil, however you
Yep.
want to look at the old dragon?
The worship of Saturn comes back to the awareness and gnosis that this reality we call life, this simulacrum, this matrix runs on time. When you're physical as a body, time is against you. So this is a very powerful truth. Once you're born, you're actually brought into the tomb. It's from the womb to the tomb. While you're here, tomb is time. That's why the Saturn character is also associated with the Grim Reaper, who's also
He's
associated with
Father Time.
Father Time. So Kronos, if you see in the mythology, you'll hear about this thing that he swallowed his children, he swallowed his sons. What that really means, and people don't seem to grasp this, that's the eclipse. The eclipse is the Saturn essence. It has nothing to do with the sun and the moon per se. It's when the sun and the moon fall for each other, they get eclipsed, they get married, they form a ring. That's why you wear the ring. Saturn is the Lord of the Rings, Sauron. It is not Satan. The ruler of this world is Jupiter, Zeus, the king of God. During this age, by the
Ra.
way, whilst we're in Pisces, the ruler is Jupiter. And we're moving out of that. And who will reign supreme in the next age will actually be a dual polarity, essentially between Uranus and Saturn. Saturn is very much more about sovereignty, believe it or not. It's this Neptunian and Poseidian energy that's really, really fucked. This is admiralty law, maritime commerce law. This is all about paperwork. Okay. So, this is the trap that, I mean, it doesn't mean that the future is going to be more free, but it will be more sovereign in some ways for some individuals, for those that are conscious. For those that are just these NPC bots, like, their whole life has been kind of on this path of further enslavement. But needless to say, and to keep it positive here, the whole this whole idea that Satan is Saturn is just because people don't see the truth in what this reality is all about, which is fighting time. We're all buying time, or we're fighting against it. When you become timeless, when you stop associating with age and stop associating with aging and just become more in the now, become more present, you start to walk with Saturn. You start to walk with the Grim Reaper. There's lessons to be told here. There's lessons for you to learn. That's where the wisdom comes in. Now, Jupiter, on the other hand, this is an essence of control. This is an essence of holding dominion over others because of power. And power has a lot to do with competition and the ego. Saturn and the Saturnian essence has nothing to do with ego. It actually represents a fair side of justice. So if we went even deeper into the mythology, you have the masculine quality of justice is actually Jupiter, whilst the feminine would be Libra, the scales, right?
Okay.
And you could even go deeper. Like, there's much, much, much more to this when it really comes to these ideas. But I want to wrap up the thought really quickly that we're moving out of this Jupiterian control and this Jupiterian essence. And that's why you're going to see a lot of logos of companies start to change. We've already started to see it. And the main colors that are ruling money and finance is white and blue. We know the flag of Israel is white and blue. The logo of Israel is boiled water. It's water over fire. And that's huge. People need to become aware of this, because the next cataclysm will not be a flood. It will be land liquefaction from plasma discharges. I mean, I could go super deep forever about this stuff, but the symbols of our age are showing us straight to our face what's going down here. This is why they're displacing people. This is why they did the bushfires in Australia. This is why they're going to start to do more of what they're doing in America with the fires that they're doing. It's obviously not real. It's direct energy weapons.
Canada, Hawaii,
What they just did in Hawaii.
California.
They're pushing people into these 15-minute cities that they're planning. So this is all part of the move into the Aquarian age. People need to be a little less certain about themselves when they call Saturn Satan has nothing to do with that at all.
Well,
And a
that's why I
lot of
wanted to
this got
distinguish that
lost
with
in
you.
paganism.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to distinguish it, because a lot of people are associating that hexagon black cube with Satan, because I've been hearing that from a Muslim standpoint because of Mecca. They have the black cube there,
Yep.
and um, people are associating that with Satan, and that's where I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it because of the Satoshi reference.
Yep. People need to be aware that Satoshi, being Saturn of this new financial age, does not mean that Bitcoin is Saturn. So Bitcoin is the son of, it's more the idea of, it's the energy of, and that could very well be Uranus. And this makes a lot of sense to me because these people aren't people. Saturn isn't a person, it's an idea. Mythology, right? Jupiter
Right.
is an idea. So all of these things represent something that is coming back to the human experience, whether that be your dream state. You know, it's funny in the Matrix movie they called that guy Morpheus. Well, if you study Greek mythology, you know Morpheus is the god of dreams.
Yeah.
So when he's handing you the pill, he doesn't want you to wake up. He wants you to go to fucking sleep. Neo did not wake up because of that, because of taking the pill. He woke up through his process of entering the matrix, and it was that entrance and being able to handle it, and then he got confidence there is what made him the one. Remember when he took the pill, the first thing that happens to him is he starts turning into liquid mercury. He's becoming the mirror. What's mercury? It's the mind. It's thoughts. That's thoth. Okay? Because that's all the matrix is. It's the mind. Think about this,
Mm.
guys. Like it's super important when you study what's going on here, it's always coming back to mythology. That's why for me, I've skipped over a lot of this new world order shit and I've gone straight to the mythology because it's saved me so much time getting lost in the negativity that comes along with the truther movement, pointing fingers, and it brings me back to the source. So this is important to know because we're moving into the year of the dragon. The dragon is associated with this portal we call the sun. This also comes back to Leo, this lion of Judah, that's tied back directly to Judaism. I think we're going to see a shift in the Abrahamic religions and that structure over 2024. And Christianity is probably the thing that's the most under attack in this. When we move into the Aquarian age, I don't think we'll have Christianity and this Jesus guy anymore. That's not me saying that I'm anti religion. I'm just letting you know the truth of what we're moving into. In order to move into that new age, they got to get rid of the savior of the old age, which is Piscean. That's Jesus. That's justice. That's Jupiter.
Interesting. So the year of the dragon, that's a Chinese thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the next animal in Chinese New Year is the year of the dragon. And that's sometime like what, mid-January?
So the year of the dragon in 2024 is going to be Lunar New Year. Let me see the exact date to let people know.
It's usually in January, February, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's usually at that pivot. So this year it's going to be February 10th.
February 10th. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I believe that's the day before the Super Bowl.
Very
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, it'll be the
Wonder
day
what kind of
before the Super
dragon
Bowl.
shit we'll see at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I
Maybe Satan
mean,
will appear himself, the old dragon.
well,
Who
they're
knows?
playing in Nevada at that Super Bowl, and you know Nevada is just a big desert
In
scape.
Vegas?
So I don't know if
It
they're
would
going to be
have to
playing in
be.
Vegas.
Where else
I
in Where
suppose
else in
maybe.
Nevada? Reno? There's no other place in Nevada, is there?
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. I don't know where Paradise,
That
Nevada
would be
is.
crazy though. Paradise is Vegas.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah, and
Paradise
I'm seeing the
Boulevard. It's
symbolism
like
already. Like the symbolism
Sin
on this is
City.
wild. I
Super Bowl in
always
Sin City.
I always decode the Super Bowls because it seems to be giving away a lot of what the year will play out like, and
Oh,
I'm
dude,
really
this is
excited to
just, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm really excited to decode this one because it has purple in the symbolism, and purple was the color of the Jubilee of the Queen's Jubilee. That's
It's also
coming back.
royalty.
Yeah, it comes back to the crown chakra as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what teams are in it. But I'm gonna go ahead and make an assumption right now. Like it's probably gonna be the Lions,
That
just
are going
because
to
of that
win, or
Leo. That'll make it all the way to the Super Bowl. Because of this
okay.
association with Leo and the association with the sun and the fact that we have this eclipse and it's forming over the state of Texas, specifically Houston and I believe San Antonio. So this is not good. This to me tells me that there's going to be a lot of negative energy around Texas this transition into April. And I wouldn't even be surprised if that was where the ritual happened in that
Yeah, well,
crossover.
yeah. Now the crossover that is showing on this website, the website that I'm pulling up is greatamericaneclipse.com. They're putting the X as October 14th with the annular and then the solar eclipse. But I thought the X was coming in from a previous eclipse, not this one that's upcoming.
Yeah, there's the one in 2017 that happened. So
Yeah,
there's
that's
two
what I was,
different
because that
ones.
was okay. But I thought that was what created the X and not. Does the one in 2017 follow I don't know if you know this offhand. Did it follow the path of this annular solar eclipse that's coming up on October 14th?
They they would both technically form somewhat of an X. So in my next
Okay.
decode, because I already released a decode over on my Patreon called Great
And
American
X
Eclipse
has been a
Decoded.
big thing lately. Obviously not just Elon Musk, but X seems to be something as well in symbology.
Yep, for sure. So yeah, I mean, if people go study more about what this X is and the origins of this symbol and they start getting into it, I mean, I really think that they're telling us something. It's pretty obvious. But yeah, man, I mean, we got through a lot today, lots of different ideas and I appreciate you filling me in on some of your thoughts. And I'm really
No,
looking
thank
forward
you
to
for your
connect next
time.
time. I think yeah, maybe we could connect sometime in November. That'd be interesting to see post eclipse and around that November 13th, the new moon that I was telling you about. That's kind of when I'm feeling that we'll be out of the negatives and moving more into the positives for this election year, kind of just to pump up whatever.
November 13th is the new moon, you said?
Yeah, that date, it seems very in alignment with we should be out of market negative energy, and
Okay.
there's no doubt that there's a possibility for some sort of Bitcoin ETF thing or a banking collapse similar to Silicon Valley Bank. I'm open minded to that, but I think generally, if it brings pressure to Bitcoin and crypto, it will be short. It'll be a short time frame.
All right, my friend. Well, I've got links for your YouTube channel, which is pulled up. And if people are not already subscribed, make sure you guys head over and subscribe over at Waters Above, the YouTube channel. I will also have a link for your Patreon channel where you go in depth with about a lot of your research. And I'm going to have a link for your website, watersabove.com, where you offer numerous courses, have your merch, a direct link to your Patreon, and more. So, what do you want to explain that people can get with your different courses, including the mastermind course, expansion mastermind, the advanced trading course, exit strategy blueprint, and more?
Yeah, so just a quick rundown. The crypto mastermind course, which is the first one you're looking at right now, is going to take people that are more at the beginner level that are looking to learn how to invest and to do it right and to actually have some base foundation and be prepared for this new cycle. And that actually includes my exit strategy blueprint for free inside of that course. So it makes it full. Everything from developing your own investment thesis, building a portfolio, learning technical analysis, and then getting into exiting the market. It goes over everything. More about investing, whilst my expansion mastermind course is just about the more spiritual and conscious side of my work, which anyone could go over to my channel on the weekends. Saturdays, I tend to do a live stream and we just talk about life and we talk about things from more of the mental perspective and the spiritual and conscious. So if you're interested in that stuff, the expansion mastermind is just holistic, covering everything from health, wellness, how to fast. A lot of people are interested in just the health wisdom. So I have a full chapter dedicated to that. And then the advanced trading course is mostly for people that are already aware of how to read charts. I would not want anyone to take this if you don't have some basic technical analysis skills. It would be above your head. But for those that do know TA, this is going to include a bunch of high quality Wyckoff schematics, which will have something that you could print out or you could just keep on your computer. And it teaches how to do this right, because 99% of investors pretty much are losing money once they get into actively trading. So, yeah, those are kind of the three courses that round out all of my work. And I do have a new one coming soon in, I'm hoping, November. It'll be the decoding mastermind, which will be about just decoding, not about investing. Um, it'll be pretty mind blowing. So I'm really excited to get that one out.
Sweet. I was just noticing on your YouTube channel, do you take your live streams down after you do them?
Yes. Yeah, I
Okay, because
removed them.
there's no live tab. That's why I ask. And I know I've seen you do this live streams on Saturdays. I just didn't notice that they weren't there for replay.
Yeah, due to the nature of what we're talking about and just everything, and for the safety of the channel, I've decided to come up with a system that's been keeping the channel healthy and keeping it so that we could speak the truth that we want to speak. And what I'm doing is they go offline, and then anyone who becomes a Patreon supporter of mine, that's one of the perks you get. So I've done over 100 live streams, sometimes 3 to 4 hours long. So that's packed with value. It's 130 red pill podcasts where I talk about the market every single week. Then my live stream archive, access to our Discord community. It's really, really a lot of value for just $10 a month.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, my friend, I will have links down below for all your stuff that we just mentioned and screen shared, as well as the other stuff that I shared. Appreciate your time. Look forward to number 6. You had any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, man, I appreciate you inviting me on. I would definitely love to come back and reconnect in November, see how some things shake out. And yeah, man, keep in touch. Much love.
100%. So bear with me real quick. I'm going to have links down below, like I said, for everything that we talked about. Make sure you guys are subscribed over at Waters Above YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out the Patreon, that'll be linked down below, and check out the website for the courses and links to socials. If you're not subscribed here at Rice Crypto, I definitely encourage you to make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't, smash that like button. I've been told it's supposed to help with the algorithm. Who knows? But I greatly appreciate if you take the opportunity to smash that like button. Subscribe to my other YouTube channel, Rice Against the Grain. You can find links to everything at ricetvx.com. And I will leave you with this. I encourage you, as always, to be a blessing to others. Treat people how you want to be treated. Be the glitch that you want to see in this matrix. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And until next time, practice change.